I've never made a YouTube video before, and I probably will never make a YouTube video again. I am stuck in my apartment like so many of us are right now, and if I don't rant about Emily in Paris somewhere, I'm going to explode. I've had a lot of time to be like alone with my thoughts, and all I've been thinking about is Emily in Paris season 2 and how bad it is. And when I'm catching up with my friends and family on the phone, I try to talk to them about it, and they're like, hey, are you okay? What's going on? We don't really care about this, which is probably the healthier approach to have. But anyways, I watched Emily in Paris season 2, I have a lot of thoughts about it, I need to share them somewhere, and I'm gonna do that here. If the editing or the quality of this isn't very good, I'm sorry. I definitely don't have like the technical chops to be making this, but I do have the anger, I do have the passion, and I just hope that that's enough. Before we get into the actual content of Emily in Paris, some context. Basically, last year, at the height of quarantine, the first season was made, it came out, and a lot of people watched it. I don't think a lot of people liked it, but a lot of people did watch it, you know, and I was one of them. It wasn't very good. In fact, I would argue it was quite bad, but it's like the kind of mindless thing that you can have on in the background and turn your brain off. And right now, when there is so much news and so much happening, that's nice, it's good. People were really mad that they renewed it for a second season, and I get that because Netflix cancels so many really good shows. But I did enjoy hate watching season 1, and I was like, season 2 will probably, if anything, be better. They have, ideally, more money, they know that they have a viewership, they'll probably put more effort into it. And that's just not really what happened. I don't know, season 2 is somehow much worse than season 1. There are so many plot holes and things that just don't really make sense. Emily is straight up a villain. She's a bad person, in my opinion. Yeah, I still liked hate watching it, but it just wasn't good. Okay, so that's the context. And now in case somehow you haven't seen it, I'll do a little summary of both seasons 1 and season 2, and then we'll dive into all of the just bonkers stuff within it. Emily in Paris is about a girl named Emily who goes to Paris. Emily in Paris is about a girl named Emily who goes to Paris, who dresses very badly, and who is very bad at her job. Her whole thing is that she works at this marketing firm in Chicago. They acquire a smaller firm in Paris, and her boss is supposed to go to, like, bring an American perspective to the French workplace, whatever that means. At last minute, her boss can't go, and Emily goes in her place. So the workplace in Paris is expecting, like, a competent woman who speaks French, and Emily shows up, who is incompetent, really annoying, and who doesn't speak French, so she's pretty useless at work. She makes 2 friends while she's in Paris, Mindy and Camille. They're both really nice and really welcoming, probably more so than Emily deserves. She also meets this guy named Gabrielle who lives in her building. Gabrielle is hot, she immediately is obsessed with him, she kisses him, and then finds out that actually that's Camille's boyfriend. She doesn't feel too bad about this though, because a few episodes later, she kisses him again, but she restrains herself like some sort of a saint. She doesn't kiss him again for the rest of the season. She gets up to regular person shenanigans, like sleeping with a minor and almost losing her company 2 million euros. And then in the very last episode of season 1, she finds out Gabrielle is moving away, and because of this, he and Camille are seemingly going to split up. Naturally, Emily then decides that's her cue to sleep with him. She does that, and then he ends up deciding to stay in Paris. So it's all very complicated, that's where season 1 ends, and season 2 picks up there. She has just slept with her best friend's boyfriend. She just kind of pretends she didn't. She lies to Camille's face about it at every opportunity. She then meets this guy in French class named Alfie, and every man who meets Emily is immediately in love with her. They're like, oh, an American woman, wow. So they start dating, and then her boss from season 1, Madeline, shows up in Paris, and there's this whole, like, American versus French workplace feud. It's really weird. The entire French office ends up quitting because of this, and they're like, Emily, you need to quit with us and start our own firm. We need you because you're so good at your job, which is confusing because she's not. She's like, you know what, I'm going to come with you guys. I want to stay in Paris because I want to be with Gabrielle. There's this whole big dramatic scene where she like runs to Gabrielle's apartment. She knocks on the door, he opens it, and she's like, it's you, it's always been you, I'm in love with you. And then she finds out he just got back together with Camille. So that's where season 1 ends. Great television, guys. Good job. Great plot. There's a lot I want to talk about in this season, but the biggest thing is the fact that Emily sucks. She's just a terrible person, she's a straight up villain, and it is so impossible to root for her. To be clear, in season 1 she's also bad, but this season she's just genuinely terrible. Like in season 1, she has no self-awareness, she's self-absorbed and annoying and condescending, but in this season, she treats her friends so badly and actively harms almost every person she comes into contact with, and we're supposed to root for her. Like, the show never acknowledges that she's a bad person, which is so bonkers. I'm gonna try and cover as much of her, like, bad behavior as I can, but she harms so many people, I'm going to miss some stuff. So if I do, I apologize. The first person I want to talk about is Mathieu. He's this guy who in season 1, Emily has a bit of a romance with. I didn't cover it in the summary because it's so brief and like non-important in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, he is her client at work. She ends up kissing him, she has this little romance with him. And near the end of the first season, he asks her to go on this weekend getaway with her. He's like, I really like you. I want to treat you to this trip to this beach town. And she says yes. And then immediately sleeps with Gabrielle, which is, it's kind of shitty. It's not very good. So at the start of season 2, she's still going on this trip, and while they're on the train together, he overhears her talking to Gabrielle, being like, no, that was also the best night of my life, but we just can't be together. And Metzier's like, hey, what the hell? I don't really want to go away with you if you're clearly in love with or really into someone else. I thought we were going away as a couple, and you're talking to some other guy.
And you slept with him after you agreed to come with me to Saint-Tropez?
Matthew, it's really complicated.
Well, let me make it simple then. Are you in love with him?
And Emily doesn't even apologize. She's just like, ugh, no, don't be annoying. Come to Saint-Tropez with me. And he doesn't, understandably. And that's the first person she harms. She literally never seems to feel remorse about this. She never apologizes. She sees him at other points in the season and is never like, hey, by the way, I'm really sorry, that was inappropriate. She's just kind of annoyed, which is just bonkers and really shitty. So Mathieu is victim number 1. This brings us to victim of Emily Cooper number 2, who is, of course, Camille. Camille's probably the person who suffers the most at the hands of our awful, awful protagonist. She, again, is super nice to Emily in all of season 1. She brings her around Paris, she introduces her to people, she brings her to her family's home. Like, Camille is just really nice to Emily. And of course, Emily then sleeps with her boyfriend and just lies about it constantly. So in the beginning of season 2, Camille's really upset. She's like, I don't know what happened. I don't know why Gabrielle chose to stay. I feel like he's lying to me about something. And she's confiding all of this stuff to Emily because they're friends, or at least she thinks they are. And Emily never even considers telling her the truth. Like, there's no internal struggle. There's no point at which Emily's like, man, should I tell Camille what I did? I feel really bad. She has no remorse. It's so fucked. And I kept waiting for that point at which she would talk to Mindy or one of her other friends and be like, I did this really terrible thing and I feel awful. Do I tell Camille? How do I bring it up? But that doesn't happen. She just keeps lying to Camille's face.
I'm still in love with Gabrielle, Emily. And I'm afraid I've lost him.
You haven't, Camille. No, I know you haven't.
All of season 2, Gabrielle wants to be with Emily. So he's doing this weird, shitty ball and chain thing where he's like, I don't even want to be with Camille, I want to be with you. And Emily ignores him and tries to get he and Camille back together. It's weird. It's like she has this logic in her head that if she just gets them back together, all of her harm will be undone. Something I want to quickly mention here is that they dated for 5 years. So it's not like Camille and Gabrielle had this little fling that Emily interrupted. To be clear, even if they were casually dating and Emily slept with Camille's boyfriend or like casual partner, that would have sucked. But they were together for 5 years. Oh my god, which is so hard to wrap my head around. I got out of a 3.5-year-long relationship in August, and I'm still destroyed by it. Every day, I think about my ex, and it haunts me. It truly haunts me. So I just can't imagine dating someone for 5 years, and suddenly they go really distant, and you're trying to talk to your friend about it, and she just gaslights you. So yeah, there's that. And then, of course, later on, Camille finds out about it, and she's really upset. She's really mad, understandably.
To Emily, our hostess, who certainly has made her share of mistakes in Paris. She pretended to be my friend while she had an affair with my boyfriend. And to my boyfriend who fucked my fake friend. À votre santé?
Camille, tu comprends pas.
bullshit!
And Emily's only reaction is that she's like, sorry she got caught. You know, she's mad that Camille found out. And in fact, she even, in a conversation with Mindy, they make this joke that the reason Camille is so upset with Emily is that she's French. They're like, ugh, French people are so slow to forgive.
Toilet M, which is why I have to talk to her. I need to explain myself.
And beg for forgiveness? Look, I think most girls would forgive you, but a French girl, nah.
You're right.
Huh? No, she's not upset because she's French. She's upset because you did something really bad, and Emily just never reckons with that. I know I've been repetitive in this section, but I just need to hammer home how awful this all is. Of course, for some reason in the end, Camille does forgive Emily, and she's like, you know what, we can be friends. Why don't we both agree that neither of us will do anything with Gabrielle? Emily says yes to this, never admits to having kissed him twice in season 1, by the way. And then at the very end, when Camille and Gabrielle get together, I think the audience is supposed to be mad at Camille. We're supposed to be like, oh, you bitch, you said that you wouldn't sleep with Gabrielle, and you did. I don't know, they act as though Emily is the victim in that situation, when Emily is the one who has caused all of the harm. Like, she is the person who caused this entire situation. And Gabrielle, of course. Like, he's not in the right here either. He also fucking sucks, but it's just, yeah. Sorry that I've been ranting, but oh my god. Okay, the third victim of Emily Cooper is Alfie. Alfie is this British guy who she meets in a French class. He's this, like, brooding character who eventually, as she gets to know him, opens up. He becomes really vulnerable with her, he really likes her, and they do start dating. Alfie is so into Emily. Like, he just wants to be with her so badly, and in the end, like, has to go back to England, and he's like, you know, I really like you, I haven't felt this way for someone in a long time. What if we did long distance? I really want to try and make this work with you. And Emily says yes.
I want to see if we could be something. And I think we could do it. I mean, I'll just be a train ride away. And come on, you can plan all the logistics you want. Alternating weekends, color-coded schedules.
It would be nice to be able to plan something in my life right now.
Exactly.
And then 2 scenes later, she confesses her love to Gabrielle. It's so shitty. Especially because throughout the season, there are multiple points at which Alfie thinks that he picks up something between Gabrielle and Emily. And he's like, hey, is there something happening here? Like, I don't want to be with you if you're in love with someone else. And Emily lies to him. She's like, no, nothing has ever happened between us. And then, yeah, he confesses his feelings. They decide to be long distance, and she immediately tells Gabrielle she's in love with him without even thinking about Alfie in that decision. Poor guy. I don't know what'll happen with him if they make a 3rd season, but yeah, that's her 3rd victim. The final victim I will mention here is all of France. Emily is just awful to everyone, including her coworkers, every stranger she interacts with, customer service people. There's this scene in particular that really highlights that. Like, she goes to this bar and she wants to have a bottle of the champagne that she is promoting, and they don't have it on the menu because it's not very good. And this is how she speaks to the bar's owner.
Excuse me, I'm with the owner of Champagne tonight, and it would be really nice if we could get a few bottles of her family champagne, like I promised her.
All of her interactions with people are like that. She expects people to bend over backwards to serve her, no matter where she is or what they're doing. She's also just bad to her coworkers. Like, there's this guy, Julien, who he's been at the firm for longer than her, but for some reason she gets more accounts than him. It's a problem, and it's really weird. But he has this one account, and he's really excited about it, and she just steals it in the first episode, and we're supposed to be rooting for her. It's like, oh, well, she's better at the job, so she should have it. I don't know, it's weird. I'm sure there are people I missed, but hopefully this covers it. She's shitty to all of France, and keeps doing this weird thing of, like, American excellence, where she's like, oh, everyone sucks because they're French, and I'm from America. Yeah, I guess we should also talk about fashion. That's a pretty big thing in this show. My question is, why does she dress like that? Why does she do it? The thing is, I'm not someone who knows very much about fashion, especially like high fashion and haute couture, but I can acknowledge that the way Emily dresses is genuinely distracting. She'll be going to something very casual, like her birthday party with just a few of her friends in her yard, and this is how she dresses. Why? Why is she doing that? I watched an interview with the actual costume designer where she explained that she wanted Emily to be different because she's American. But the way she dresses isn't like American either. It's just super over the top. She doesn't even work for a fashion company. There's no reason for her to be dressed like that. I'm gonna stop talking and just let you look at some of the looks, and hopefully they will speak for themselves. So enjoy. Okay, this isn't a big thing or a huge problem, but I do want to talk about it, and that's Madeline. So you'll recall season 1, the whole premise of the show is that this woman who speaks French fluently and did her master's in French is supposed to go to Paris. She can't go at last minute because she's pregnant, and Emily goes in her place. That's literally the entire joke of the show. Emily, someone who doesn't speak French, doesn't know anything about French culture, goes in Madeline's place. Emily is comparatively incompetent, and she's like this fish out of water. Then in season 2, for some reason they decided to bring Madeline back. It's weird because she's not a big character in season 1. Like, she's in that first episode, and that's kind of it. But in season 2, they bring her back. She comes to like scope out the French office, and she doesn't speak French. Also, she's still pregnant. Like, the whole thing in season 1 is that she can't go because she's pregnant. In season 2, she's super pregnant. Like, probably at a stage where flying would be more complicated, I imagine. But she goes anyways, and she doesn't speak French, and they pass it off. They're like, oh, haha, she forgot how to speak French, or she over-exaggerated her credentials, and it just doesn't make sense.
Bonjour, Madeleine.
Bonjour, Sylvie.
Personne vous a prévenu, mais c'est mon bureau.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Okay, we have to talk about the gay stuff. Emily in Paris is extremely weird about gay people. It's so bizarre. Like, do you ever watch something and you're like, oh, this should have been written in 2010 or 2005? That's how this show feels whenever it addresses gay people. It's just really weird. There's a lot of casual homophobia and transphobia, and I haven't seen a ton of people talk about this, so I'm going to dive into it pretty deeply. And that means that we are going to dive into season 1 a little bit, because there's so much in season 1 that's absolutely fucked as well. If you're not up for a conversation about transphobia or homophobia, you can skip to this timestamp to avoid it. Okay, so in season 1, in the second episode, there's a whole plot point where Emily's supposed to promote this vaginal youth product, and she finds out that the noun vagina in French is masculine and not feminine. So instead of la vagin, it's le vagin. And she loses her mind. She's like, oh my god, but vaginas are for girls. Why vagina masculine noun? Girl have vagina. And it's like, okay, calm down, J.K. Rowling. she freaks out. She's like, what an oppressive language. Vaginas are feminine, not masculine. And she makes this whole Instagram post that literally just says, the vagina is not male. And it goes viral. People are like, yes, queen, the vagina isn't male. And it's really gross and weird. In 2021, having a plotline that revolves around biology being attached to gender is it just straight up is transphobic and weird and unnecessary. And it's so confusing to me that they did this for no reason. And they move on. It's gross, it's upsetting, I hate it. Speaking of weird gender stuff, oh my god. Speaking of weird gender stuff, Mindy is also very bizarre in the season when it comes to her relationship with queerness and gay people. So in season 1, Mindy gets a job at a drag bar for some reason. The whole thing is that she wants to be a singer. She, I guess, auditions at a bunch of different bars to sing. And yeah, the bar that ends up hiring her is a gay bar. This wouldn't bother me if it weren't for the fact that they're so weird about it. Mindy is extremely heterosexual. She's also a cis person. And when she gets offered the gig, she makes a weird joke to Emily, being like, haha, I pretended to have a different gender identity to get the job. Why would they write that? Like, it's just kind of upsetting and gross and weird, and there's no reason for her to have said that. So that's not good. And yeah, they do a bunch of other jokes like that, where they're like, haha, isn't it funny that Mindy's a girl, but she do drag?
Guys, can you come see my roommate and incredibly talented friend perform at a drag club tonight?
Oh, I hate drag.
No, she's really talented.
She?
It's complicated.
Which is weird because actually there are women who do drag. That is a thing in the queer community. They're all often called drag kings. They're not as common as drag queens, but that is a real thing. Like, there are queer women in queer spaces who do drag. Mindy's not one of them. There's also this moment where after she performs at the drag bar, Luc is like, wait, so that's not a man? And Emily's like, no, it's not. And Luc is like, ugh, either way, doesn't matter. And they all are like, yes, king. Like, he just said something really progressive.
She's a woman, right?
Definitely.
Either way, doesn't matter.
I don't know, it's weird. She's just a singer, right? So Mindy could have gotten a job anywhere. And I kept waiting for the fact that she got a job at a drag bar to be relevant to the plot, right? And there are ways in which it could have been, and I'll get to that. But it never becomes relevant. Like, literally the only reason they placed her in a drag bar is to make fun of queer people or to like make jokes about the fact that she's a woman. And it's really gross and icky, and I hate it. Not to keep using the word gross, but like that's what it is. It's not good. There's also this weird thing where she's in a band with these two guys who she met at the gay bar. And so she assumes that they're both gay, which I guess is a fair assumption. But then the guy is like, no, I'm not gay. I'm actually really into you. And it's supposed to be this whole funny moment of like, whoa, haha, we thought he was gay. Which just feels very like 2010. I don't know. It's so bizarre. Yeah, it's not good. Another thing we need to talk about is Camille. The way they treat her is really weird, and she's often heavily implied to be queer, especially in season 1, and I just hate it. I really hate it. So, okay, when Emily first meets Camille in season 1, there's this weird moment where they go to kiss on the cheek, and they accidentally kiss on the mouth.
Okay, I have to go.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not. See you tonight, right?
And at this point, we don't know that Camille has a boyfriend, and it's kind of implied that she's hitting on Emily, or she's into Emily. Later, there's also this moment where Mindy also implies that, like, Emily and Camille are attracted to each other, or that something is going on there. I kept waiting for this to go somewhere, because why would you have two characters kiss, one of them say she's not sorry it happened, and then have a character be like, oh, she's so hot, are you into her? If it's not gonna go anywhere, right? But it literally never does. Now let's just pause for a second, and acknowledge how much better of a show it would be if Emily and Camille had something going on between each other. Emily in Paris is just such a boring, stereotypical show, but I think it actually would have been really interesting if they're both into this guy, Gabrielle, they're kind of competing over him, and then they have some sort of moment of self-discovery and they end up together. Like, that would have been a genuinely compelling plot. But that's not what happens. Camille being queer just never really comes up again. They make weird allusions to it, but I don't know, it just doesn't come up. And so in season 2, when Mindy starts performing at this drag bar and Camille goes, I thought that that's where maybe Camille would start exploring her sexuality, because again, I still thought the drag bar might mean something. I still thought that this show might do things with intention for some reason. I really overestimated it. I also thought at this point she's single, right? She's dating around. So I kept waiting for her to like date a woman or have, again, something to do with the fact that she was implied to be gay multiple times in season 1. It doesn't happen. This weird scene happens though, which is gross. Camille and Emily go to like this spa where they're all naked, and Emily's really uncomfortable. She's like, when I meet your friends, should I still kiss them on the cheek even though they're naked? And Camille says this.
So am I supposed to still kiss their cheeks when we meet?
What else are you gonna kiss?
So it's just weird, like Camille is still making allusions to kissing women or like having sex with women, but it never comes up as like an actual earnest exploration of queerness. It's just kind of a punching bag. Like, haha, wouldn't it be funny if Camille were gay? And it's like, no, actually, that would be a much better show. You should make that show instead. I would like that show. There's also this moment at the gay bar where Mindy, during her performance, non-consensually kisses Camille on the mouth, and she seems to enjoy it. But yeah, Camille is still straight, I guess. Yeah, I don't like it at all. If someone wants to write the show where Camille is gay, though, I would watch that one in a heartbeat, so the thing is, all of this like casual homophobia and queer baiting and stuff is made worse by the fact that the show doesn't have gay characters it treats well whatsoever. So in season 1, the only gay character is Julien, who is one of Emily's coworkers, and he's like implied to be gay by the fact that he is sassy in the background. He rolls his eyes, he has a limp wrist sometimes, but we never actually see him have a romance with someone. He barely gets any lines, and actually the role was heavily criticized because he's one of the only characters of color in the cast, and yeah, he gets like no screen time. They treat him so poorly. It's just awful. So in season 1, they don't really fix that. He has more screen time, I guess, but they don't do anything with it. He doesn't even go to the gay bar when everyone else does. And I thought, again, I was grasping for straws so hard. I was like, maybe Mindy's gonna work at a gay bar so that we finally have the opportunity to see Julien in his element. Like, maybe that's his community and he's going to come out of his shell and we'll see more of him. But he doesn't even go. So nothing really happens with him at all this season. He's still a very like stereotypical gay best friend with very few lines or important plot points. There is a point at which he has a crush on that guy Mindy ends up dating. And then when he finds out he's straight, he's super mortified. Julian's like, oh my god, I can't believe it, I hit on a straight guy. Which, I don't know, is also kind of weird and unnecessary. So I really do think that all of the, again, like casual homophobia is just made very apparent by the fact that the show doesn't have gay characters it cares enough to flesh out as real people. It does introduce a few other gay people this season. Their only roles in the show, their only character traits are gay and mean, which is shitty. If the show got criticized in season 1 for only having one gay character and treating that character just as a random gay stand-in, it tried to fix that by introducing more random gay stand-ins, and it's really not good. Yeah, don't like it. Writing 3 identical gay men whose only roles is to be gay and mean isn't meaningful representation. If you're gonna write gay characters, you should give them personality traits beyond the fact that they're gay. You should try it, it's good. But yeah, I don't know. The show was just really shitty. It brings up gay characters a lot where it doesn't need to, and then when it actually has gay characters, it just doesn't know what to do with them beyond being like, haha, look, this guy's gay. That's most of it. That's what I want to cover. There's so much wrong with the show that I didn't get into. It's boring and weird and bad. She's bad at her job. The show doesn't know how social media works at all. She gets really famous or like gets pretty big on Instagram by posting the most boring shit you've ever seen. The show is very proud of being American, which is funny. It seems like it's trying to correct the lack of diversity in season 1 by adding more characters who are just really one-dimensional, which doesn't work. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I just didn't have the chance or the space or the energy to get into, but keep that in mind. The show is even worse than I'm making it out to be. One thing I do want to mention, I just didn't know where to include this, but it's so important to me that you all see this scene. There's this like really weird moment where Emily's boss, Sylvie, who is one of my favorite characters actually, she's like the only one who consistently criticizes Emily for the most part. She is dating this younger guy, and I guess they want to make a comment on like ageism and dating someone who's older or whatever. So she goes to a restaurant with this young guy, and this happens?
And what will your son be having for lunch?
My son will be having me.
Moi, je joue. Moi, je joue, elle joue contre joue. Je veux jouer, elle joue contre.
Oh my, why would you say that? It's so bizarre to me because, again, it's like, that's a good message. Older women can date younger guys, and that's fine. But why would she say that it's her son and then kiss him? Oh my god, it's so weird. Just say, it's not my son, and then kiss him. Can you imagine if you're at a restaurant and someone says, this is my son, and then makes out with him? Oh my god, I just needed to include that somewhere because I watched it and I felt like I was losing it. So yeah, again, I'm sure I'm missing lots of stuff, but I need to go to bed. And this is already getting way too long. I hope you liked it. Thank you so much for watching, genuinely. Like, I do really appreciate it. If there are ways that I can improve, let me know. And yeah, if enough people enjoy this, I will consider making another YouTube video. But if I don't, I still had a lot of fun with this. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Bye.